I am so excited to share that you can now watch all of my upcoming podcasts on my brand new YouTube channel for the What Now podcast. So many of you have asked for more video content, and now you can watch these powerful conversations face to face. Every story, every testimony, every moment of faith and resilience, you'll now find it all on YouTube. So I'll be posting more of my episodes there, along with new short clips and deeper insights to help strengthen your faith and remind you that you are never alone on this journey. I invite you to subscribe on my YouTube channel at Podcast What Now. That's at Podcast What Now, so you never miss an episode.
This is the What Now podcast.
In this episode of the What Now podcast, I sit down with Emmy award-winning journalist and filmmaker Jane Clayson Johnson to talk about her inspiring documentary, Pathway to Hope. Jane shares how her journey to Africa opened her eyes to the faith and determination of students whose lives are being transformed through BYU Pathway Worldwide. She reflects on the power of Christ-centered education to lift individuals, families, and communities out of poverty, and how faith and hard work are helping create lasting change across nations. From students studying on cell phones to entire families finding hope through learning, Jane's experience reveals what's possible when faith meets opportunity. If you've ever doubted the impact one inspired program can make, this episode will remind you that God truly magnifies small beginnings into miracles.
This is the What Now podcast.
Today, I'm here with Jane Clayson Johnson. Welcome.
Hi, Mary Alice. It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. I'm so thrilled that you're on the podcast today. You are a seasoned journalist. You've spent years telling powerful stories as an award-winning journalist. And so I just like to know what inspired you to create Pathway to Hope, and how did that all come together?
So my husband and I had known about BYU Pathway for many years. We'd served on the President's Leadership Council, BYU Pathway, and we knew how effective it was as a program to bring education to people around the world, but we didn't really understand how life-changing it was. And so about 2.5 years ago, I was invited to join a Zoom call with 4 BYU Pathway students from all over the world: Papua New Guinea, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And during this call, these students told their stories of how BYU Pathway had completely transformed their lives, brought them hope in a way that they just had never had before. And at the end of that hour-long call, I was just in tears. I just could not get these students out of my mind. They were sacrificing to get an education in ways that most of us could never understand or fully appreciate. And the journalist in me just thought, this is a story. This has got to be told. And so I picked a documentary and ended up going to Africa. And that's how this documentary project started.
I mean, that's pretty daunting. I mean, you're going into impoverished Africa for 2 weeks to do this story. I mean, what was that like?
Well, it took me many months, actually, before we even were on the ground in Africa. It took me many months to identify the students that we were going to interview on the ground in Africa. And so before we even got there, I had interviewed probably 50 students on Zoom calls so I could see them and I could hear their stories. And I thought, well, I really have to choose here. It turned out every story was quite an amazing story, but just in order to get a diversity of experience and, diversity of demographic and locations, we narrowed it down to about 12 students in Kenya and Uganda. And so I had done many pre-interviews with each of these students before we even got on the ground. And I was so excited to go because I could feel in these interviews, I could feel the faith of these students. I could feel the determination and the resilience of these students before I even met them. And so going there and seeing them in person, it was just a life-changing experience to be able to tell their stories.
I bet. It would be so hard to pick because they're all in such difficult situations. I mean, the film shows how education changes lives in places of deep poverty. I mean, how have you seen learning and Christ-centered faith work together to create hope? I mean, you saw that firsthand, boots on the ground in Africa.
Yeah. So what BYU Pathway does so beautifully is that it takes students where they are, whether that's in the slums of Nairobi or in the most rural villages in the heart of Uganda. And it meets these students where they are, in the situations they're in. It educates them. It helps bring the program to them, educates them over the course of a 3-year bachelor's degree. It's not a 4-year degree, it's a 3-year degree. And then they graduate, and BYU Pathway then helps them find remote work. And so there are many innovations through BYU Pathway. The 3-year degree, there are certificates for every year that they're in the program. So they'll finish 1 year and they'll take that certificate from an American university and they'll take it to their jobs to get maybe a raise, or they'll go to get a better job to uplift themselves. So they're not waiting to graduate to make their lives better. Each year they're in the program, they actually step up to be able to uplift themselves along the way. So it's an innovative program, but Mary Alice, the reason that it works is because it's inspired. And the reason these students are so successful is they know God will help them. They just have so much faith. Yeah. I mean, this is a program, this is something that they have been praying for generations. Parents and grandparents who'd hoped for the opportunity for an education. Only 9% of people in Africa have the opportunity to get a college degree. And so when this program comes along and they realize that this is something they've always wanted, and here it is. And so their willingness to sacrifice to get that degree, to get an education, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. And it's not just changing individual lives. It's changing entire families, communities. It's uplifting, really nations, and it will continue to.
Well, you are breaking a cycle of generational poverty.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that's what's so interesting. You know, when I was on the ground, it's not just a student who's college age who's doing BYU Pathway. It's their parents and their uncles and cousins and siblings that are much older. You know, the whole family is doing it. And BYU Pathway is really training church leadership, the next generation of church leadership in these countries. So, you know, you'll see entire branch presidencies, entire state presidencies doing BYU Pathway. So yes, it is breaking a cycle of poverty, one student at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time, really.
Yeah. I mean, talk about faith and strength. I mean, these people really have nothing, and they are consecrating every last penny they have to do this. What did you learn about the strength and faith of the people you met filming in Africa? Because when I watched your film, there's a young man who goes on the mission. He has all this leadership opportunity, and then he goes back to nothing in Africa. And then he totally turns his life around.
Yes. Well, because of BYU Pathway, he had the opportunity to turn his life around. He had joined the church. His name is Junior, and he had joined the church in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He'd been called on a mission. And when he joined the church, his family cut him off. So he went on a mission anyway. He decided to serve faithfully and came home to nothing. And that really is the story of many returned missionaries that I spoke with in Africa. You know, they sacrifice and spend so many years trying to get on a mission. And then they come home with no educational opportunity, no job, in many cases, family that's far away. And, you know, BYU Pathway fills that need. That's another really interesting point that you remind me of with that question. I talked to many companionships of missionaries, one from the United States or a developed nation, and one from Africa. And on their mission, they are equally yoked. They both have intelligence and drive and determination and faith, right? So much faith. And then the American missionary goes home to college, to a car, to all sorts of opportunities. And that African missionary, equally yoked. They were both in the same camp. They were together in every way. And that African missionary goes home to no job, to labor markets that are broken, to high unemployment rates. It's a real challenge. And so BYU Pathway creates this opportunity for these return missionaries, and of course, many students in many circumstances, but it fills the void for these return missionaries who didn't have opportunity before, keeps them moving along spiritually, professionally, economically, in every way. So it really is an incredible tool to transform lives.
I mean, I love how you kind of wove together pathway program, pathway to hope, because that's what gives them hope.
Yeah.
They have an education, but in Africa, the job opportunity isn't that great. So how do they provide jobs for these people in a broken labor system?
Right. Well, I mean, that is really what BYU Pathway is working on right now, is trying to create more jobs for these students. That is the next hurdle, so they've got the education down. They've got students who are deployed in the program, and the program is working. And now we just have to get jobs for these students once they graduate. I interviewed a young mother named Elizabeth, who lives in the most economically impoverished area of Nairobi, Kenya. She lives in the slums, and she lived in a 10 by 10 foot room. She has 2 little children, no electricity, no running water. She lugs jugs of water every day just to drink and bathe. And she works 75 hours a week, 75 hours a week as a security guard, barely making enough to feed her kids. And then comes along BYU Pathway. She sacrifices so much to do Pathway on her cell phone, Mary Alice. Think
Nightmare.
about that.
Nightmare.
Think about it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Navigating an Excel spreadsheet or writing a college level term paper on your cell phone. But she does it when she doesn't have access to a computer, which is another big issue for many of these students. They don't have access to computers, so they go to an internet cafe. They often spend more money on internet access than they do on their education or anything else in their life. Food, housing, because they want so desperately to be able to complete their assignments and finish the program. I'll tell you this statistic: 74% of BYU Pathway students in Africa struggle to find even 2 meals a day. And 76% do not have access to stable housing or reliable internet.
Oh my word.
So it's an incredible, there are incredible obstacles that these students are trying to overcome, and they are. But getting an education to get that job is really what everyone is trying to accomplish, including the students, of course, themselves.
Well, I like how you were talking in the beginning where they have these kind of incremental programs where they can get a certificate and they can build on top of that. So they're increasing their earning potential one increment at a time. So they don't have to wait 3 years to get that boost. Right.
That's right.
I like how they've modeled that because it makes sense for this type of region. Right.
Right.
And
That's
then
right.
they do a lot of virtual jobs too. Don't you partner with a VC firm or someone who provides these virtual jobs for them?
There are a lot of American companies that have come forward to partner with BYU Pathway to try to hire these students. And since the film has aired, actually, there have been several corporations who've come forward offering to hire BYU Pathway students and to try to partner with BYU Pathway to find ways to, in the long term, employ these students. Also, Mary Alice, we should talk about the service missionary element of BYU Pathway, because there are many people who sacrifice 5 to 10 hours a week to mentor BYU Pathway students and to help get them through the program. And I really think that that's such an important part of BYU Pathway. BYU Pathway couldn't function without service missionaries and everything that they sacrifice to donate 5 to 10 hours a week just to get these students through the program, to mentor them and help them through. So there are lots of elements of BYU Pathway that are quite revolutionary, actually, and that are leading to an effort that is truly democratizing education and transforming higher education, not only with the 3-year degree, but with scholarships and with service missionaries. And there's so many things that really, are unique and completely unique to higher education.
Mm-hmm. Well, having any sort of education is so empowering. It gives you so much confidence. It changes how you feel about yourself.
Oh, yes, that's exactly right. There were many people that I met in Africa who said, I'm the first person in my family to ever even go to college, let alone graduate from college.
Yeah.
And so I am setting the standard for the rest of my family, for my children, for my extended family, everyone who comes along next. They can see that it's possible. I met one couple named Peter and Pauline Ondigo. Peter grew up selling vegetables on the streets of Nairobi. He found BYU Pathway. He was one of the first BYU Pathway students in Kenya. He started in the program and graduated. He now has a job, a good job, a home. His wife is also graduating. 10 members of his family are now participating in BYU Pathway. So he said, I feel like I'm an example. I have set the bar for generations of my family to come. They can see now what's possible in a way that was never possible before.
Yeah. That is a generational shift.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's generational change.
Mm-hmm.
And there are few programs that offer that in a powerful way like BYU Pathway does. Generational change. That's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. You think of the growth in the church in Africa. We need leadership there. Yeah. And so this provides opportunities to have leaders in the country. If they stay there and they have a job opportunity there, they can stay there and become the leadership we need in these countries. They're growing. They're baptizing so many people there. It's unbelievable.
And there are many students who have graduated from BYU Pathway, and truthfully, they have job offers at American firms, but they are choosing to go back to Africa to invest in BYU Pathway, to invest in these students, to uplift the communities from which they came, because they know how transformative BYU Pathway is and and what a difference it can make. So these students who have graduated are now pouring their resources back into the program and back into their communities to help the students behind them. And the church is growing exponentially in Africa. And so the next generation of leadership is being trained by BYU Pathway. So it's not just, educational professional changes. It's church leadership. And truly, it is enabling the gathering of Israel in a very meaningful and significant way.
Mm-hmm. The education piece is critical on every level. Just for the church development over there, for their personal families, and just modeling for their families what's possible. They've had generations of family members who have never been able to get out of poverty.
Right.
Imagine how freeing that is for them to witness that. Like, oh my gosh, this is actually possible.
Right. That's right. That's, I remember walking the streets of Nairobi with a student and just feeling that sense of hope. That's why I titled the documentary Pathway to Hope, because every single student talked about hope. This is bringing an uplift to their lives and to their families' lives in a way that they just never dreamed possible. This is hope. If you were to narrow down or just take the essence of what BYU Pathway does, it
Yeah.
offers hope. It's a pathway to hope.
And there's an interesting partnership between education with Christ and education without Christ. I mean, how does Christ being part of the equation make it transformative for them?
Well, it's a great question. I think what's different about BYU Pathway, it it is structure, it's support, it's an educational foundation, but none of it would be possible without the spiritual foundation that is at the heart, really, of BYU Pathway. There's institute in every dimension of BYU Pathway, so it's a spiritual foundation, it's a spiritual education. And, BYU Pathway is not just for church members. There are many BYU Pathway students who come to know about BYU Pathway, sign up for BYU Pathway, and then, of course, join the church after they have finished or, while they are studying in the program. So it is a tool to bring those people to the gospel who are looking for it. It's not just an educational tool, but it is definitely built on a spiritual foundation. And that's, partly why it's so successful. Mostly why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about the infrastructure of the church, that we have so many volunteers, so many service missionaries. I don't think they could manage the explosive growth without it.
Right. That's right. And the work the BYU Pathway service missionaries do is incredibly inspiring, life-changing. I mean, I have met many BYU Pathway service missionaries who were called for a year or a 2-year effort, and they are in their 6th, 7th, 8th year. They love it so much. I tell people being a BYU Pathway service missionary will change your life. It is so empowering and such a beautiful experience to watch a student evolve in this program, to grow spiritually, to graduate with a degree, and how that shifts their options, creates opportunities for them that they never dreamed possible. To watch that as a service missionary, that's incredible.
And so fulfilling. Like, how fulfilling that you're helping change the trajectory of someone's life and legacy. It's so amazing.
Right.
And so what message do you want viewers, especially those struggling to see God's hand in their own lives? I mean, in the United States, we have a lot of issues with people not getting the education they need. We have poverty here. We have a lot of struggles here in the US too. I mean, and Pathway helps lift people out of that. It's such an inspired program.
BYU Pathway is not just in Africa. BYU Pathway is all around the world. It's in the United States. And I can't give you the numbers right off the top of my head, but I think a third of BYU Pathway students are in the United States. 2/3 are around the world. So there are many BYU Pathway students in the United States who are benefiting from this program. It's not just for African students or for students in Asia or South America, though the program exists in those places. BYU Pathway is also in the United States.
I mean, I have a really good friend in San Clemente. She got married at 19, never went to college, and it always bothered her. And she got her degree through BYU Pathway. And she feels so much more confident. She's like, I just feel so much better about myself. It always bothered me. I never graduated from college, and I was able to get a 4-year degree through Pathway. And now she's a service missionary for the Pathway program because it changed her life.
What a wonderful story. It's full circle, isn't it? I just love that.
I know. I love that. And really it is empowering to be educated. I think, I have another sister-in-law that just graduated from BYU. Finally, she dropped out when her husband went to law school, never finished. It always bothered her. And she finally graduated. And she feels so good about herself having done that. So I just love that. I mean,
it's a confidence builder. It's a testimony builder. It's a confidence builder. It changes your outlook on life. It changes your employment opportunities. I mean, there aren't many programs that check every box, but BYU Pathway does.
It does. It's such an inspired program. I interviewed Clark Gilbert about it years ago when he created it. And I just thought this is going to be revolutionary. And it has magnified since that time. I mean, that was over 6 years ago. And now it's just grown and become huge. So I would like to understand, like, how it's going to Africa to record this film changed you. I mean, it's very different culture, everything on every level. It's the opposite extreme of what we experience here. I mean, do you continue to work with those people you filmed with? I mean, how did that change you?
Oh, yes. I'm still in touch with most of the BYU Pathway students that I met in Africa. I'm in touch with them sometimes on a daily basis. They are dear friends now.
I love that.
There's a couple that I met in Uganda that we focus on in the film, Faith and Vianney. Vianney's a branch president in his little branch outside Masaka, Uganda. Faith is the primary president. They are first-generation college students and first-generation saints. They joined the church and then found BYU Pathway, which is what often happens. And Faith started a little cake baking company after she graduated with her business degree from the BYU Pathway program. And she sells cakes to people in her community and has doubled her family's income. And I buy a cake from her every other week, and she delivers it to somebody in her community who needs a little uplift. I love Faith. I love all the students that I interviewed in Africa. I consider them my dear friends. They are an inspiration to me. The sacrifices and the struggles, the sacrifices they make and the struggles that they endure to get a degree and to stay faithful, it's unlike anything I have ever seen in my life. It makes my problems look so small. And so when I connect with them, since I have been to Africa and seen that firsthand and still connect with it all the time with them, I feel uplifted in a way spiritually that I just, I'll be so grateful for the rest of my life.
That's amazing. I mean, that can't help but change you. I mean, you think of people who even go on these little HXP trips for a week or 2 weeks. They come back changed.
Yes.
When you see how blessed we are in this country and what people really have to go through to get basic needs met.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It brings a new perspective. It brings a new perspective and an understanding of our blessings, of our opportunities, and the responsibility that we have to give back. Mm-hmm. You know, where much is given, much is expected.
Yeah.
And my parents told me that growing up. I heard that. Yeah, mm-hmm. I know. You too. And it's an obligation that we have to lift those who need our help. And in the process, we are also lifted in different ways. But as importantly, it is BYU Pathway has changed my life in so many ways.
Yeah.
It brings me to think about how my life has been just changed because of how these students exemplify the light of Christ, their example of goodness and faith and resilience and determination. All the things I want to be, they are. Mm. And when I think of them, my heart smiles.
I love that. That's beautiful. I am so grateful you've taken the time and your talent, consecrated your time and talents and everything God has given you really to this initiative and going to Africa and taking the probably thousands of hours of film and just siphoning through all that, the time it takes to do all of that, and just making such a powerful film to shine a really bright light on the reality of this, and that this is a pathway to hope. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Mary Alice, and thanks for what you and your family have done for this remarkable program. It's an honor for me to come and talk about it, and I hope people will watch Pathway to Hope on YouTube, on BYU TV. It's out there. It will change your life to see these inspiring students. Thank you, Mary Alice.
Thank you.
This is the What Now Podcast.